Okay.
Then I don't have to see that I forgot to hit record.
But now we got to be funny, and I don't know what to do with myself.
Those sound like two different problems. This was a interesting question or article that you came across on this one too, because I started researching the article and I jumped backward because I went into. Well, I get to that. This is like a surprise. Then I'll put different music behind.
I got a surprise for you later as well.
Ken, we should do these in the morning, not in the afternoon, right?
In the parking lot.
So the first article, I guess, to that point was how fake images change our memory and our behavior. Was the one I came across from the BBC on their future section. I thought that was interesting because the picture in the front of it is this giant storm coming up over the Statue of Liberty, which was from the Sandy storm when we had Sandy.
Superstorm Sandy.
Yeah, a long time ago. And it's a fake picture. But everybody thought it was a real picture. And that's a piece of kind of what we were talking on. But as I started reading some of the articles.
Question. Do you actually think this looks real?
No.
I don't think this looks real at all. Like, this to me looks like really bad, day after tomorrow kind of like an advert. Like it. Yeah. I don't look at this and go, yeah, that looks totally real. And
I don't know if that's because we live here, or at least I live here, right? But I'm used to seeing it, so I can tell quickly or not. I don't know. It looks like bad Photoshop.
It really does. It really does.
So, which is that's a whole nother level of questions. Is it really because people don't pay enough attention to figure out that they can actually notice? Like, do people just not notice the difference? Or, and it's maybe we talk about this, right? But not notice it, or is it, like you look at a picture really quick when you're scrolling through and you don't even really pay attention, but it still logs in your head,
Well, to me, the reason this picture stands out to me so bad is because it's so dark on the right hand side of this picture and it's pretty light on the left side of this picture. And there's only a really small circular part of rain that comes down. Like, very rarely. I've done a lot of traveling and I've seen lots of storms. I've seen that's like a shelf cloud, I believe is what they would call this thing, but it's circular. And those are usually surrounded by lots and lots of gray, dark clouds. And then that kind of comes along with it. Like, there's just an awful lot about this picture that also has the sun in the background.
Yeah.
It also looks like there's almost two suns. So right behind the statue is one, the big sun. But then if you look over to the right, there's another sun.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I don't know, just maybe it was from the weird bar games that we all used to play, spot the differences. This thing doesn't pass the smell test to me.
Yep.
But actually looking at the data, this is from 2012.
Right.
How things have changed in, 11 years when it comes to how well we can kind of fake stuff.
Yeah. And to that point, I guess when you look at this, the shadows would give it away if you actually pay attention. It's interesting. I read a research paper that was talking about how our memory is manipulated by images, or showing you an image of something maybe that you've never seen. I'm going to make you think you've seen it in your past, and now you're going to start to think you remember it. And then you're going to agree that you remember this event, even though it never happened. But because of the images and your trust in images, you start to think that. And what was interesting about it is we have a trust in the story, but our brain is not smart enough, is what they were saying anyway. Our brains were not smart enough to look at an image and quickly go to look for, like we're doing, the shadows, or other less blatantly obvious mistakes. We don't quickly look at an image for those things. So where I look at this and I go, oh, wow, that's a huge storm. I'm glad I don't live in New York. And I go to the next image. Now you and I are looking at it and you're going, yeah, but look, there's two suns. We don't live in that kind of planet. And, it's.
Well, and also from this angle, if you were on a boat looking at the Statue of Liberty this way, there is a whole lot more water between the Statue of Liberty and the Jersey side.
Mm-hmm.
And from this angle, I believe you would actually see some of the tall buildings in Jersey City there. Because right when you come across, like, you would be looking like just south of Hoboken, and there's a lot of tall buildings there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think in my brain for the angle.
Ago, but like,
but I had one of my offices was in One New York Plaza, and our kitchen area we had for our office building looked out at this and down at the ferry and this every morning. Yeah. And the way you're talking about, I'm trying to remember, and with the way it was turned. And the way this picture is, you would be looking down towards Jersey City where the pier is, where you can stand on the pier and shoot back at the bottom of Manhattan. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you would miss the buildings, though. You'd miss the skyscrapers. They would be just off on the right. But yeah, I don't think the buildings should be.
Because like you see that quite a bit. Like there was there's one of the insurance companies not too long ago where they were doing like goofy things like along like what was supposed to be Battery Park.
Right.
And then they have like the Statue of Liberty. It's like huge in the background. And if you've ever been to Battery Park, it's not huge. Like you stand there along the water and like, oh yeah, it's out there.
It's
like,
out there. I can see it.
And that's the thing that I always tell people is like, oh, it's the Statue of Liberty is way smaller than you actually think it is.
Yeah. Just
like the Mona Lisa is tiny. It is not a big painting at all. And when you go see it, like, oh, well, that's it. Like it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Proportions from when we see pictures, when we see videos and things like, I mean, it's a lot bigger when you're standing next to it, but, the other thing that was, it makes me think of was.
Sorry, you're gonna have to cut this out. That's what she said.
Now I got to go find that. Yeah.
Now you got to go find it. Hit the chapter.
And I got to beep it out. The other thing it makes me think of is the space landing everybody always talks about. And not to open up other controversy for anybody, but the shadows is what I thought of. When you watch any show that talks about the space landings, the original space landing, or the moon landing, original moon landings, the shadows is what people argue about, to say that all the images, the whole thing is staged. Multiple shadows, multiple light sources, things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched a documentary on that. It's fascinating stuff. Like going back into the late 60s and the technology that we had.
Yeah.
It still, like, when you think about it, my iPhone here has many, many magnitudes more processing power than they had to go to the moon.
Yes.
Like I have watched a few documentaries on that. They were having to use a sextant to manually check course correct because they didn't really have a computer to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
For humankind to have that level of audacity and to actually pull it off is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Whether they did or didn't, I'd like to believe we did, only for the same audacity, like you said, is because it's that ability to put blood, sweat, and tears into something we do and have that kind of passion that has moved us forward. It moves technology forward. It moves innovation forward. So we want that, right? We want to try. Like, don't say, oh, I don't have Google Maps yet, so I have to wait,
Well, you had Google Maps. It just drove you into the lake.
Right.
Like we talked about on a previous episode, instead of giving you the right address.
I was thinking, as you said, that was maybe it's going to take the green path. So it's going to take us over by Mars first and then come on back to the moon,
But the funny thing is we can't actually prove that we've been there now. Like we have lasers that you can shoot that you can refract back. And, but it makes sense. Like that whole doctoring of images made sense. Like I wasn't alive in the 60s, not even close, to be honest about it. But, with all of the geopolitical things that were happening and it made a lot of sense. And there was an awful lot of lying about what was actually happening.
Yep.
And because a lot of it you couldn't prove, where, they didn't have the internet, they didn't have all of these things. And if you could get someone to publish it in the newspapers and everything else, then everybody just believed it because that's what was kind of happening. And, really a juxtaposition to where we are now, which is we have pictures and we have all of these things, and can we actually believe them or not?
Right. But interesting too is science has shown that people trust pictures more than words. And if words are provided with pictures, they believe both more because you have a picture. So I guess a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And
That's right.
and because you have an image, it must be true because you have a picture of it. Like it must have happened in any context, right? So now, like you said, today we're seeing computers that can generate a perfect image and not, like the older photographs we've seen. And they can even write the text, so they can create a complete story. And then it's up to us to figure out if it's truly real or not. The interesting thing too, just thinking about the spacecrafts or the moon landing and everything else is, it is not the first time, and it's not the earliest time that this has happened, right? We've been doctoring images for various reasons, one way or another, for a long time. I mean, back in the 1800s, they were doing photography and figuring out how to do double exposures to put ghosts in the images to make people believe that there were ghosts, behind people and things like that.
Man, real easy way to sell ghost hunting services if you can prove that there's ghosts.
Exactly. But it's been happening forever. On a whole different topic, maybe we touch at some point would be kind of fun is UFOs was that kind of thing where everybody says they're around forever, right? And they're in images and all that. And then we said they weren't. It's all fake. And nowadays we're saying it's all real. So that would be a fun topic to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, we're at least saying that, we've seen things that don't make sense. And that is it's a very different posture than what we've ever said in the past, which is, it's all fake. But it's like, and it's interesting because is it, I don't know. I think we should. I think we'll save some of that for another episode because, there's a lot of really smart people and really smart instruments that have come out to see some of these things, but it's also kind of like Bigfoot.
Right.
Like there's all kinds of pictures, but they're all real blurry. And we all walk around with like a 40 megapixel camera in our pocket now.
Yeah.
And we can't get a picture of Bigfoot or like all the pictures that like there's the stuff that came out from the UFOs here over the last handful of months. And all of them are blurry. It's all like,
why are they all 6 megapixel and like really grainy and yeah.
Yeah. And the answer to some of that is that they're not actual pictures. They're, they're looking through infrared or other pieces and then they're crafting up what an image would look like.
Yeah.
Which is why it's, not a picture.
Right. But it's it's a fun topic. Maybe we'll touch on things soon. This one was fun because this one was looking at the images as a whole. Right. As I mentioned, when we just started, I had to step back because a lot of things I was reading obviously led to disinformation and misinformation. And because we hear this everywhere right now today, whether you're looking at social media, whether you're watching TV, YouTube, whatever, you're hearing this everywhere. I asked myself, what is the difference between misinformation and disinformation before even wondering about the technology? And the definition that I came across that I thought was a really good description said the key distinction between mis and disinformation lies in intent. Misinformation refers to false and misleading content, while disinformation involves intentional fabrication and dissemination of that information. Right?
Yeah. I mean, you get like there's a bunch of interesting like examples of that. And I know some of them were in kind of this article that you read, but I found another interesting one. And it's one that a little bit of a pop culture reference, but not something that I knew of before. But do you know who Paula Abdul had her first kiss with?
No, I'm terrible with names.
I didn't either. Didn't even know. But as I was doing some of this research, a random thing came up. Well, in 2015, an article came out where not an article, but a comedian was writing a joke, and he was making a joke about how like Paula Abdul he made this long, like or fairly long, kind of story about how, she had her first kiss under a tree and it was with a boy named Michael that was kind of an odd guy, but always gave her cookies. And how when their lips touched, it was magical. It was this whole weird thing.
Like a really deep narrative.
Took off as being true.
Oh, wow.
And, like if you go and you Google, like it's the first thing that's going to come up. And it's interesting how, it kind of goes down to like the misinformation versus disinformation where, I don't think that guy was trying to mislead anybody, but he like unwillingly and unknowingly kind of led everybody to believe that Paula Abdul had her first kiss under a tree with a boy named Michael.
Yeah.
Even though it's just straight up not true at all.
I think that's rather fun. Yeah. And do you define it as either of those because it was done more as a fun narrative, which we're allowed to write stories? I mean, you have historical fiction, which is slightly different, but I like historical fiction. I like the fact of taking real historical periods, time periods, and creating a fictional narrative on top of it. So you understand the space they're in, but the actor, the characters are different and the storyline might be slightly different. I've also seen a mix where they do a little bit of both, where they work around the edges of real history and they create a more in-depth story. They kind of fill in the things that we don't know from history books, but they're not trying to create fake information. They're not trying to change history with it. They're just trying to entertain. You as the reader have to be smart enough and cognizant enough of it to know that and enjoy it for what it is, but don't change your narrative in your mind of all of a sudden that, history has changed because of this book. This is not a history book. This is fiction still.
Well, it even goes outside of books because our dear friends at the History Channel have been accused of stretching history in some ways where, a lot of that goes down to entertainment. So like I'm trying to entertain and, giving you information about a historical, character, whoever that might be. You want to give a lot of true things, but if you're trying to have like a live action of the character and then other people around him, like a lot of that's going to just be straight up made up.
Yep.
But they're trying to convey who the person was and their historical significance and other things. And,
yeah, you're thinking like the Vikings.
Between those is kind of up to you. It's like, I probably wouldn't go to the History Channel to learn all that much about history.
The problem is that's what it used to be.
It's all
right.
It's not even history anymore. No. It's just all, good old crap TV.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that with most of these channels, and again, a whole different deep dive, right? Is disappointing because we used to have all these channels that would truly teach a lot of that. And they've gone to more of the pure entertainment content. So you would think when you went to history, you learn history. When you go to military channel, you learn about military. If I go to the science channel, I want to learn about science. I don't want to watch a reality TV show that's just people doing silly stuff.
When I go to the History Channel, I learn about storage wars.
Right? Which is not real even. So
it's not. No, they are 100, spoiler alert. All of those shows are 100% scripted.
Yep.
If you were to actually do people really do that? Yes, you can go buy vacant or, abandoned storage units. But if you were to go to one of those, well, it's not a live auction for one. And if you were to go buy one, you're probably going to be really disappointed as to what's actually happening there. Maybe you find interesting stuff inside, but all of the drama that comes along with it, it's just non-existent. It doesn't work.
Yeah, it's all made up TV drama. It's disappointing, isn't it? So where were we going, right? So we're talking images.
Well, I mean, I guess just to, continue that line a little bit, what are some of the implications of misinformation and disinformation? Like what we were just talking about is a bit kind of playful stuff. Maybe misrepresented a, historical character or something like that. But, now there's an awful lot of challenges that can have real world implications as to, what is reality and what are you going to do about that reality? And inside of this article, there was two interesting pieces that they brought up. They brought up and this is going all the way back to 2004.
Okay.
Where, there is a picture of the John Kerry sitting next to Jane Fonda at a Vietnam War protest. Well, that was actually cited by the New York Times and others, but in the end, it was fake.
Right.
And, on the other side, there was the Mitt Romney children that had like their shirts spelled out money instead of Romney.
Right.
And, that again turned out to be fake. And this was in 2004.
Right. That's what I said before. We've been doing images for a long time and
forever.
Yeah.
And, did those have an impact to the politics of the world? Maybe.
Well, I think in some, right? Because people are quick to call out problems. People are not quick to fix the problem they created. So you're going to see that image. It says money. And somebody tells you, oh, that's his political view and he's just after money and everything else. And you read that and you go, oh, wow, that's terrible. Okay, I'm going to go on to my real life now and I'm going to go do something else. Now the article comes out saying it was a fake. It's wrong. It was we were lying, oh, we're sorry. But you never see that article.
Well, retractions don't ever get clicks.
Right. So you're never going to change your mental picture of that. Is that part of the Mandela effect? I don't know.
It kind of is. Yeah. I mean, it also builds on echo chambers as well.
Yeah.
Where, if depending on which side of the aisle I might be on, like, oh, look, see, that person's exactly the way that I thought they were. And, oh, that's a total, hit job against my guy. And it's like, well, maybe. And back then, like, even a rather untrained eye could have probably figured out that those were, bad Photoshop jobs.
Yeah.
But to your point, especially now, like that gets the clicks and it's going to drive all of that engagement. It's going to divide people. And then it's like, oh yeah, well, it wasn't exactly right. My bad.
Yeah.
It's written in, on page 57 in, 9 font.
Yeah. And no one can read it anymore. It's just tiny.
Yeah.
Yep. I came across an article from Dornsif. I don't know. USC DOR.
You better work on your German there, buddy.
Yeah, that one I don't have. But it's an educational site. It says EDU site. Haven't seen it before, but it had an article I thought was interesting, and it was social media's addictive loop compels users to share mindlessly. So all of this content, right, starts to get click-throughs, like you said, and shared. Not because people even agree or see anything else in a picture. They just see the picture and go, oh, wow, that's crazy. Let me share that. And so then these things are shared with more people, more eyes, faster, just because of the social media addictive loop, because you're just addicted to sharing and liking it. Oh.
Mm-hmm. So it's become a mechanism that is really hard to break because a lot of times, but like there's an interesting study, and I don't have the numbers here in front of me, but people will reshare just the headline. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, well, this tweet came across and I fully agree with the headline here, but they don't ever click through into the article.
Right.
And that the rate of that is crazy. And it comes down to, that dopamine hit you get when you have likes and shares and, people want to be the first one out there and, just share and gather all of that engagement.
Yep.
And it turns into these habits and people don't even understand it. Like this is a little bit different, but it's the same thing really around kind of social media. I saw this video the other day of a man and a woman were at a very nice looking restaurant and they had all of their food. And the lady had this, I don't know, looked like a 25 or 30 inch light. And she's crawling all over the table, like trying to get the best camera angle of the food. And the guy's just sitting there, he's just like, if I could melt into this seat,
Yep,
I would in a heartbeat. And it comes down to like, the camera eats first.
Yep.
And if you were to go back not very long ago and you saw someone with a light the size of your arm crawling around on top of a table, like trying to get the perfect view of this food, you'd think that they were out of their mind.
Yep.
But unfortunately now it's become, I don't know, I don't call it the norm, but if you were to see somebody do that, you'd be like, oh yeah, there's some social media influencer doing influencer things.
It's or even just somebody on social media, right? Doesn't even have to be an influencer. I know my girlfriend and I take a lot of food pics because it's one of our hobbies. We enjoy food. We do a lot of cooking. And then we have a lot of friends that I literally have a couple of friends that when we didn't post for a week, like not one of the meals we made, they sent me a text message to make sure I was okay. And they asked me, dude, you okay? We haven't seen any food pics. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Let us post something right now. But we don't do it for like
breadcrumb that you left.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go. Yeah. We need the sound effect. But it's to your point. A couple of years ago, if I decided I want to take a picture of something and share it, I felt uncomfortable maybe doing it because I'm in a restaurant, I'm at a table, and maybe it's not a fancy restaurant, but still I'm sitting someplace I'm going to eat. Nowadays, people, myself, even maybe you, I don't think of it much. I'll take a picture of myself. I'll take a picture of my girlfriend and I sitting there, and nobody around just seems to stop and look. You don't get weird stares. It's just seems to be the norm, as you had mentioned. It's not analysis paralysis. What is it? There's another good word for it. When you when something becomes so commonplace and so much the norm, like a scent, a smell, right? If you're standing someplace and the smell disappears,
nose blind to it.
Nose blind, yeah. You're kind of, and I think that's what's happened for people taking pictures or using their phones, talking on their phones. It's just become commonplace.
Yeah. There's also the other videos of the young kids like doing their dancing TikToks in front of everything. And they seem super embarrassed when they get caught, but doesn't seem to stop them from doing it though.
No. I was watching a video of a guy who was talking out on a hiking trail. He was talking about nature survival and hiking and some things I was watching. And he thought he was far enough out that he was by himself. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, another guy on a bike just comes down the trail. And he stops and he's like, okay, that was weird. All right. And and then he kept going, but
you got to do what you got to do. Yep. You never know what you're going to come across on some of those nature trails.
Yeah. But he was startled, like you were saying, like all of a sudden he was taken out of some weird alternate reality that he felt he was in because another person showed up into the scene. But then when that person left, he went back into character and he was this character.
Back to doing his thing.
Yeah.
But some few other interesting things from this article too, around like the difference between people that post all of the time and people that don't. They're just occasional users. And, talking about like the social rewards and how, people that post all of the time, like that kind of dopamine hit kind of just goes away and goes away and goes away. And it becomes almost clinical where there's like, yeah, this is just what I do. Like I tweet 400 times a day or whatever.
Yeah, it's a habit, just like anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then there's an interesting thing. Habitual users don't care what you think. I think that was
But why is that different than somebody who smokes or drinks or does drugs or anything else, right? When you meet somebody who's an alcoholic, let's say, right? If they're truly an alcoholic and they're really, must have their drink, then they don't care what you think and they don't care what you think about them. Like it's that same drug addiction in the head for social media. If they don't think and they don't care and I'm not going to stop because you tell me to stop. And like it seems to follow that same pattern.
Yeah. There's an interesting quote in here where it says, they're not just ignoring the likes, they're also ignoring the consequences of posting, which is how misinformation starts to spread.
Because they're not looking at what they're posting, what they're sharing.
Mm-hmm. And, so that kind of leads to the question of like, how do you know if something is real or not?
Yeah.
Like that's a really hard question to answer, especially in real time, where if you're looking up a fact from 2020 or 2012 or 1992. Like that's probably fairly well settled. But if it's, hey, what just happened? Like I see smoke coming up over there. What's happening? Like that's that information has not been settled.
Right.
And so, if someone says, oh, well, I think someone started a fire in a trash can, like, and they were wrong. Like
it was just a guess. Right.
It was just a guess.
Right.
And, but maybe that now gets shared and shared and shared and shared. And now it's like, oh, well, we have a dumpster fire problem. And, it's like, oh, well, that's a totally different problem. But, that's how some of those things could start. They could be relatively innocent.
That's a completely different kind of dumpster fire. Yeah.
Completely different kind of dumpster fire. You really, really got to watch out for those. But like to me, it comes down to, when you're looking at things online, it's validating the source and then validating the source's source. But that's not always possible. Like sometimes
people aren't going to spend time doing it either.
No. Like, oh, well, especially when you agree with it or you want it to be true.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, well, someone that's against my political ideology had something bad happen to them. It's like, well, okay, well, and it's like, are people doing it maliciously? Maybe. I don't know how you stop that.
I don't think you can stop it. I know I've posted pictures on and off on like Facebook that I know somebody posts that's fake because I think it's funny as hell. And I get a laugh out of it. But I know sometimes it's going to annoy somebody from a political standpoint or something else because they're going to take it too seriously because we don't seem to be able to laugh at jokes the same way we used to. But I'll share it anyway because it's just fun. And that's how I look at it. I think it's, again, a whole different rabbit hole in itself, but I think it's sad that we can't laugh at things the same way we used to.
It's true. It's a very serious world we live in right now.
That is very true. I was just thinking while you were doing that, I said, okay, well, how would I check for some of these? As a photographer in general, I can look at an image like we were saying before, and I could say, okay, I'm going to really look at this image and I'm going to say, if I put it in Photoshop, I can get all the way to a pixel level and I can look for the way it's cross stitching pixels. So did you put that image into another image and then try to, blur out or brush out or, shade in the pixels just right to make those images become one image? Now the computer's making that harder and harder to see that, but you can look for that. You click ghosting on the edges of pasted in images. You used to be able to see the white line ghost, things like that. Right. And so the question comes, how do we find that? And will it become impossible at some point? And the other part of this, as we go through, right, is what's the video, right, doing deep fakes.
Yeah. The video is even scarier. I saw one the other day. It was like Tom Cruise playing the guitar or something like that, talking about how he does all of his own stunts. Yeah. It would look really real. Like I don't watch a lot of movies. And so like, I don't have a really good visual representation of what Tom Cruise looks like, other than you just kind of know what Tom Cruise looks like. And it looked really, really, really good. And all of the stuff around it, like he has the video had a very similar kind of backdrop to yours with like a couple of pictures on a painted wall. And it was, in hindsight, kind of scary.
Yeah, a little too realistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I found a tool on here called Tiny Eye or Tin Eye, TINEYE.com, and it's a reverse I get it right, reverse image search.
Yeah, where
you can go and validate different images, and it helps you to do image verification and other things. The old Snoops.com site has been doing stuff forever. Also had an article talking about, you can use TinEye, you can use Yandex, Bing Images, Google Images, and you can start trying to search and see if pictures are real or not. But again, you have to want to take the time to go look.
And you have to be like, you have to be very concerned about who you get your information from, because who's fact checking the fact checkers? And
Well,
you
yeah,
really
that's
need to be doing a lot of that, because if you don't, like, yeah, you can do a reverse image lookup, which will help, but a lot of people are just going to drop it into, into Snopes or, whatever, and get whatever it is that they have to say. And it's very intriguing to see, what some of those independent fact checkers have to say about certain things.
Yeah.
And that does actually bring up an interesting point. Like on Twitter and even on YouTube now, they have like community notes where people can start to add like what they think context is to some of this. And it's been an interesting experiment, because when you look at social media over the last handful of years, it's been black box fact checkers. And I know everybody can't see my air quotes, doing this thing in a black box and then spitting out their results. And what they're trying to do now is build more of a, here's the point, here's this viewpoint, here's that viewpoint, and, things that kind of go along with it. And I actually appreciate that a bit more, because in the end, like, when you look at news reporting and the way that things were working in the past, it should be fairly easy to say, these are the facts that we can actually verify. And then here's an opinion for left-leaning folks. Here's an opinion for right-leaning folks. Take that for what it's worth. But that's not what we get, because that doesn't drive engagement, and it doesn't drive clicks.
Yeah. My ex used to say, all of media was, if it bleeds, it leads.
That's right.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's true.
Yeah. And to that point, right, it has to be something that seems so outrageous or so over the top and so egregious, I guess, it's just, I'm in the same place, really. But, it's got to be something that you stop and go, wow, okay, I need to read this. I need to look at this. The problem is that requirement of getting eyes on content because it makes money now has become more important than just content. Your point, right? And the truth. And again, it goes back, I guess, to my thing I said earlier, is I feel like kind of with the comedians, I feel it's disappointing from my point of view. I'll take that on, that we don't just provide the facts in a lot of this and let people make their own decisions. Stop driving people's decisions, because you want the truth. You want the information. I love what you just said. And I just did a search on it here, and it says that context notes in YouTube are annotations that provide additional information about the video's content, like definitions of terms, explaining of the concept, links to related resources. It's kind of like putting Wikipedia on top of the YouTube. And I think that's great, because again, also, if you're trying to learn, one of the things I researched a couple of years ago that I liked was Zettelkasten, if you've ever seen it. I showed you Obsidian. Obsidian is one of the tools that people are trying to use to manage notes. Zettelkasten is a process that was used on index cards to gather and manage tiny little pieces of knowledge that the gentleman who put it together, it was able to write something like 63 papers and like a dozen books or something. I know my numbers are wrong, but it's pretty impressive. And then they asked him to be a teacher, and like in a year or something, he went back and got his master's degree because he had so much information and knowledge, and he became a scholar on his own right, just doing this and learning how to manage and do his data. But what was nice about it is it's all just knowledge. There's no emotions on top of it. There's no point of view on top of it. There's nothing else. It's just knowledge. Now the person using it, like himself, can put his narrative on top of that. So I know I'm on a soapbox now, but I still would always want this information, like we're talking about, to be knowledge, and then we get to do what we want with it, right? Keep it open enough that people can make their own choices. So when you talk about something like these images, I'm okay if they're fake. It's kind of fun to see some of these crazy images. I mean, we've played with the AI tools themselves. Just tell me it's fake, or tell me what's fake in it. Tell me why it's fake.
I mean, are you trying to tell me that a pig in a leotard jumping over a horse standing next to a barn is not real?
I think it depends what you feed the pig.
It's true. That's true. But I mean, not everything's that absurd either, right?
No.
That's the scary part.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the reasons for why people make images vary, right? So there's positive and negative. But getting off my own soapbox here, I just think this is really cool technology, right? We had another article we did come across from NPR, and it was, right, AI generated images are everywhere, how to spot them. And it was an interesting article because it started talking about, how do you see AI manipulation with tools like Midjourney and DALL-E, stable diffusion, and how do you start picking these out? I mean, the one picture they showed, I thought was great, and it's got the Pope in a giant white puffy jacket, and it looks perfect. Actually, that would be cool to see him in that, but it's a fake picture.
I mean, who doesn't want to see the Pope in a poofy coat?
Like, it'd be awesome. If we could get him to rap and wear that, it'd be my day. Like, that'd be awesome.
And honestly, they probably could. Like, with all of the video and
true,
that's happening now, like, it's probably not that far away.
No, you could do a deep fake and the voice stuff. Because did you see the tools? I know we're talking about visuals, but the tools for editing your podcast, you can go in and change the wording, fix how you wanted to say something, and it will take your sound from the rest of the podcast and splice it back together to create the words that were missing. So you can edit your podcast by retyping what you want to say, and it will put the audio back in.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And pretty soon we'll just have ChatGPT just start spitting stuff out.
Yeah. I think a better...
It'll like happily be wrong, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's not perfect yet. The one technology I'd like to see, my girlfriend mentions it often, I agree, is she always says, I want to see my dreams, because she dreams a lot. Yeah. She goes, so when somebody comes up with all this tech, so I can plug it into my head, put a headgear on or something while she's sleeping, and it can take the electrical pulses and create them into some kind of graphic image, like a movie. And then I can wake up in the morning and I can watch my movie from my dreams. Like, that's what she wants.
Well, I remember watching the documentary Futurama, and in there they actually joke about how they get ads into their dreams.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, Futurama is clearly not a documentary. It's a animated television show on Fox that they just brought back. But in one of the episodes, they do talk about, Fry, kind of the character that came from the past. Like, he was freaked out about how he's getting ads in his dreams. He keeps dreaming about this pair of underwear. And he doesn't know what to do about it. It's pretty incredible. But, when you think about things like, Neuralink and honestly, like, capturing your dreams I don't feel like that's that far away. And then if you can capture your dreams and you can do these other things, what stops you from being able to create dreams for yourself? So what if you were to be able to, this is kind of futurology kind of stuff, but like, what if you could go to, like, sit down in bed and say, you know what? Hey, voice assistant of the future, I really feel like dreaming about, walking around the rings of Saturn, with whoever talking about philosophy. Like, right. And that's what you dream about. Like, that the future could be a pretty interesting place.
Well, and again, this is a really good topic that could go off on its own. But if you believe in affirmations, if you believe in visualization, like a lot of athletes say, they visualize winning and doing their sport multiple times a day, right? To the point that they've already seen it happening, so that when they finally do it, it goes exactly the way that they've envisioned it. Well, that's another reason meditation, right? Meditation, I'm clearing my mind, I'm relaxing, but if I do like visualization meditation and other things, I'm putting images in my brain. Now, if you take this path we're talking about, and I can create the images for my affirmation of what I want to be in the future, I am training my brain to think and see the way that I want it to see in the future. So theoretically, you're programming yourself for where you want to be.
I think this is something we should definitely dive into, because I have a whole bunch of comments that I want to bring up, but I don't want to.
All right, let's pull this one out, because I got stuff from my martial arts experiences that fit into this too. That would be fun. So, all right, we'll pull this one out.
Let's do that.
I like that. So, it's funny. The article I mentioned a minute ago with finding out if a picture is real or not from, Midjourney and those says, don't spend your time going down to the pixel level. Like it says, don't do that. Mm-hmm. It says, using tried and true techniques of media literacy. It's a model called SIFT, SIFT. The 4 moves. I don't think I've ever seen this. Oh, stop, investigate the source, find better coverage, trace claims, quotes, and media to the original context. So this is, again, like you were saying, this is really just a methodology for stop, drop, and roll.
Well, I mean, like again, like the whole SIFT thing, and kind of what we talked about a minute ago, where that works great for non-real time thing. And I think we just have to be okay with having information that is not 100% factual coming out with things in real time, and we can kind of go from there.
I would feel like everything else we're doing, I think the AI itself should be able to check the images as fast as they're created. So as soon as it comes onto social media, why can't I create an AI that knows how to pull the images back apart and see if they were done? Or can I have, like they talked about putting,
no,
well,
because it's in, and I know we're going to, in the episode where we talk about the technology behind this, I think we'll dive down into this, but it's not like it's not taking pieces of things and then putting them together, where, like in the past where you had like you're splicing video together, like
right.
splicing video. Oh, look, you can see you can see
where they literally taped it together, right?
To, like overlay video over another overlay, like you're going to see a weird line. Like this is not that.
Correct.
This is a, from a technological perspective, it's just a picture, and it's perfect.
Right. Well, the question has to go
be the ultimate decider is how perfect are the pixels? Like, is there some level of blurriness there that you wouldn't see from a resolution perspective taken from a regular camera of the day?
Right. Or do we force things like watermarks or something? So like you said, that would be a interesting conversation as we go through, right? On my photos that I had published out, they have watermarks, and I'll hide a watermark in the picture as well. So if somebody ever said, hey, that picture is not yours, I can go, oh yeah, it is, because way down here in the pixels, actually colored into the pixels even, is actually my name. And it's, you don't see it in the image, but it's in the image. And I can, as I zoom in Photoshop, you would see it. So, those kind of watermarks.
So there's I'm going to tease a future episode here, but I saw an interesting video not too long ago about glitter, of all things, and ways that they're using glitter to track things that are happening and how you can actually trace
glitter.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting stuff.
All right.
We're going to talk about that in a future episode, but I'm just going to tease, we're going to talk about glitter and technology.
I got a whole thing in my head on glitter. I'm just going to keep it out of the conversation right now. That sounds really cool. I am very curious about that now.
Mm-hmm. So do we want to move on to the surprise segment of the episode?
I was going to ask, because in the beginning you said you were gonna bring something along that I wasn't aware of, and you were gonna test it.
So we're gonna test Dan's historical knowledge about things that you may have heard and things that you may think are true or things that maybe not. And so we're gonna run through some of these and we're gonna see how well Dan does when with these. So we're gonna start with an easy one. So some of these are harder than others, but they're really based around like common things that you think you know or that you may have heard that just end up being wrong.
Okay.
So, first one, a penny dropped from the top of the Empire State Building will kill you.
Yeah, that's been out there forever. So I believe it's false because of the light weight of it. The wind would actually catch it and blow it away. It wouldn't drop and speed up so fast that it would go into the ground. You know, I think it used to say it would go into the ground like, 12 or 15 inches or something like that.
Oh, there's all kinds of crazy stuff about how, and then the scary part is if you think throwing a penny off of a building is going to kill someone, look at how many people throw pennies off of buildings.
Yes.
We have a bunch of mass murders, but you are correct. It is not true. It is only going to fall at its own terminal velocity, and its terminal velocity is very, very low. And also a lot of buildings get updraft.
Yeah.
If you've ever been in a really tall building, you actually see like wind going up. And so the chances of it even actually hitting the ground are pretty low. A lot of those buildings also have like a base step that comes out that things kind of tend to fall on and don't make it all the way down to the ground.
Yeah, I believe they do that on purpose.
So isn't that interesting?
Because bodies falling off the top of that would, be a different story.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
So cracking your knuckles will give you arthritis.
I'm going to say no based on my age and having been cracking and pulling my fingers out of their joints my whole life. So I'm going to go with no.
You are correct again. I'm making these first a couple easy.
I know you're warming me up.
It's actually the noise of cracking is popping in your joints. It's actually nitrogen bubbles.
Yeah, air or nitrogen
in the fluid that are around there. It doesn't lead to arthritis in almost any way.
Makes chiropractors happy though, because it sounds like things are really moving.
Yeah. So all right, this one's a little bit harder. So Van Gogh cut off his ear in a fit of madness over a woman.
Oh, good question, because that is the story that's out there. I'm going to say I agree, because I believe the story was that he did do it and mailed it to her.
That is absolutely the story. But it is not true.
Really? Oh, wow.
It's not true. Yes. He did indeed get his ear sliced off, but it most likely happened in a fight rather than a romantic gesture for a woman.
All right. So they were trying to make him a hopeless romantic. That's what it was.
They were. Yeah. Like, no, he just got into a fight and got his ear chopped off, but there was nothing else. So next one. So Walt Disney did not have his body cryogenically frozen after he died.
That one's an interesting one because the technology was in the news and it was more active around the time. I do remember the story of them talking about that, but I believe it was a false piece of news.
You are correct. He did not get cryogenically frozen, but he's actually cremated and buried in Glendale, California. But the president of the Cryonic Society of California was actually contacted by Walt Disney Studios about how the process actually worked, which is where the rumor kind of started.
Okay, because somebody asked the question.
Yeah, because they're like, let's see here. And let's find one more. So this one's old. Like I didn't even know about this one, but Marie Antoinette, when briefed about the suffering of her kingdom, replied, "Let them eat cake."
Oh, this is Well, this is an old one. There's a really good comedian I like who has a whole skit on it called "Cake or Death."
There you go.
And I believe it's fake, but I don't remember the whole story. I can only think of the comedian skit now.
Let's hear the comedian skit. But you are correct. It is fake. And the quote would have been highly uncharacteristic of Marie Antoinette, an intelligent woman who donated generously to charitable causes and despite her own lavish lifestyle displayed sensitivity towards the poor population of France.
Yeah, I will. I'll send you the comedian at a different time. It's Dress to Kill, I think, is the episode. It's from several years ago. Excellent comedian. At that one thing he did, Dress to Kill, it's actually really funny.
Yeah. The funny thing about all of these, and that was the last one, but the funny thing about all of these is really, when we think about, misinformation and disinformation, and you think it's a common problem from, just the modern technological age, and it's really not. It goes back and back and back and back. And, it's a human problem in a lot of ways, where if you're trying to trash someone, you can come up with ways to trash them. And, if you're trying to find information, there's people that'll lie to you. You just have to be, in my opinion, keep a clear head, think about things, and do your homework and kind of start to do a little bit of research to see what's true. And then also go back and look at the follow-up.
Yeah.
Look at who said it.
Think for yourself. Well, forget about who said it even, because I'll go with what you said before. And then the reason I'll push back on that one is people share so fast, right?
That's true.
And the person they share from could have also just shared it. So I don't want to judge people in the thing, but look at the context. I think it's more important in my mind to just think for yourself. Like you said, stop for a minute before you post it and ask those questions. That who created the original content, not even who sent it to you, because the person who sent it to you might have the same habits you do and they just keep posting stuff,
That's right.
One of my friends on Facebook retired now and just posts funny pictures that he comes across and funny memes all day long. And he's one of my entertainment channels, the stuff he finds. But I know that he's not going and fact checking any of it. It makes him laugh, so he shares it.
Yeah.
So I would never judge him by what he finds. I know it gave him a chuckle and he's hoping to give somebody else a chuckle. And that's his whole purpose for sharing it.
That's right. And through all of the highs and lows of all of this stuff, I think that really is the thing. Sometimes you just got to laugh. Sometimes you have to be okay with people sharing information that it's not factually true. And just to remember that most people are good people and we all agree on about 90% of things, and just be kind to everybody.
Well, and to the point, nobody gets out alive. Stop taking it so seriously. Like,
That's right.
But, and I had a story that we didn't bring up earlier that I think is interesting to this point of the conversation too. And we used to say we knew fake news, or not even fake news, but stories and fake stuff came from like tabloids and certain types of magazines, right? So you were saying old storylines, and I had pulled one out I thought was cool, and it was 1917, and it was the Bat Boy photo that was published in the Weekly World News. It was a tabloid newspaper. So we already, kind of expected, right? And it was a photo of a half man, half bat creature from West Virginia. And people thought this was real forever.
It's still a thing.
Yeah. Like that kind of stuff, you had War of the Worlds, right? 1938. War of the Worlds broadcast from H.G. Wells. Everybody thought that, real aliens were landing. They were listening to it on the radio. He was so convincing in the storyline that he had everybody convinced that we were being invaded. Right? Just crazy stories all over, year after year. 1950s UFO sightings, black and white photos that were showing flying saucers. And then the media would start putting them out and realize they were hoax, right? The moon hoax, possibly. There's so many through history, like you were saying. It's we should not be looking. I don't think we should be afraid of either, but we shouldn't be looking at just the tools today we have, like Wall-E and Midjourney and those, and saying, okay, this is the end of all of it. Everything's going to be fake, because it's not. I don't think it's going to be any more than we had before. I think, and just maybe as we're rounding, I think, yeah, we're getting pretty long winded on it now, but I think the last half of it, and maybe it's our next discussion and we'll dive into one of them, is I think there's a very positive side of this, and it's going towards the ability of creating content that truly is personalized for me, for you, for somebody else. So we both happen to enjoy our Jeeps, outdoors. I have my guitar. I do my photography. I have certain things I like. I'd love to be able to, instead of looking on a website for artwork for my house for hours, be able to type in and say, okay, this is my house. This is my colors that I have in the house. This is the type of art I like. Create for me 10 pictures, these sizes that I can go and, I can put in my house and just have it do that for me, right?
Yeah.
Or the other one was, let's make movies. What if I'm in the mood at night, kind of like you were saying earlier, right? I'm in the mood for a movie. Instead of a dream, it's a movie. And I'm looking for this kind of movie, these kind of characters, and I think I'm going to fall asleep in about an hour. So let's make it about an hour-long movie. All right?
There you go.
So,
and I think all of this stuff we are absolutely going to take care of on some other episodes, because there's a lot to dig into there. And I got into a very on one of those topics. I got into a very heated conversation in Reddit about that particular topic, but we will talk about that next time.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, as always, man, it's been fun, and I hope everybody enjoyed.
Yes, excellent. Thank you, sir. I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, cheers.